So I am going to use this. Excuse me, I am losing my voice. I started losing it sometime last night. I'm a little sick, a little under the weather. Then I did a training today. I was facilitating a training, so I spoke for the better part of 6 hours prior to coming here. So my voice is going, so I apologize. Otherwise, you would be able to hear me quite well. I grew up in a very traditional Lebanese home, Lebanese American home in Easton, first generation. So culturally speaking, things get loud in a Lebanese home. And so we only have one volume, and that's loud. So this is abnormal and unusual for me to have to resort to other means to get my point across. So I'm Chris. I am the Mobile and Intervention Services Coordinator at Pyramid Healthcare. I'm also a graduate intern counselor at the Keenan House. My services at Pyramid, I oversee several community-based programs, some that go into the schools. We run some early intervention groups in the schools. It's a program in schools throughout Lehigh County, a program called Choices, and works to do just that, help students make better choices. It is early intervention. I oversee the individuals who go in and do the SAP assessments in schools. That's the Student Assistance Program, behavioral assessments that occur in the school, as well as drug and alcohol assessments that occur here in Lehigh County in the prison in their work release. So that's that duty. And at the Keenan House, I am in the role of a counselor. So that's me. Tasha has asked me to speak about what can be done along the treatment continuum, treatment/recovery continuum. That including pre-treatment, before the individual is motivated into treatment one way or the other, while in treatment, and then what happens after, and then as they make that transition from treatment into recovery. So Tom did a very good job talking about the ins and outs of the neuropharmacology, the neuroscience part of addiction, and how an individual becomes enmeshed in their addiction. I'm also someone who's in long-term recovery, so this is a personal journey as well that led me to coming into this field. So outside of the younger, the adolescents and teens who are first experimenting and using, it's very experimental, they want to fit in because everyone else is doing it. Outside of that, what is the chief reason, primary reason that individuals get high, use drugs? All these, there's a whole long laundry list of things, no doubt. But the ultimate thing is they want to feel good. Primary reason for using drugs is to feel good. And you know what? It works. Yes, mind and or mood altering chemicals are very effective at making people feel good. Now there's that whole list of things behind that you want to feel good about. Depression, fitting in, all the other deep-rooted insecurities, the abuse, the trauma, you name it, all there, but that's what they want to feel good about, and that's where drugs come into play. So they work really well, really effective, and then what ultimately happens when a person crosses that threshold and becomes an addict is that drug of choice becomes the primary love affair in their lives. Number one. Everything else around that is peripheral. Secondary. Those relationships only matter when it's convenient to the primary relationship with your drug of choice. People start to, will go back and emphasize the importance of those relationships when they need people to help fuel their addiction. They reach out in times of desperation and all that, but when things are just running status quo for them, when everything is just wonderful and dandy, nothing else means anything. That was a double negative? Sorry. But everything else is inconsequential beyond getting high and your drug of choice. And therein lies the problem with getting people to accept that they are addicts, that they need help, that they are creating chaos, dysfunction, and destruction to them, to everyone else around them, and they're oblivious to it. And it feels like they don't care, and they're heartless and cold and all these other things, but I think Tom said it. The drug takes you. And the other thing I like to do is walk around a lot, so this cord is not helping. The drug controls you eventually. It dictates the relationship. They have, it is in the power position in the relationship. So getting someone to accept it is not very easy. And one of two things generally happen, or a combination of the two, which was the case for me. Either external motivators, where other forces intervene on your behalf. You know what I'm talking about, external motivators? Police, jail, spouses, kids, yeah. Things outside of yourself. They are one way that individuals will access treatment. And the other way is the internal, which is the best way, and this was summed up for me, my advisor, my undergrad advisor out at Alvernian University, when we were having to talk about things, and we were talking about rock bottoms, and it was kind of a trick question. He was asking me about rock bottoms, and he asked me, what's rock bottom? And I started going through all this stuff, and he stopped me. He goes, all that stuff is bad. He goes, there's only one rock bottom, and that is death. That is the only thing you cannot come back from. Everything else that we label rock bottoms and leads us into treatment is nothing more than, and it's significant, but it's merely, you get to a point as an individual where you offend yourself on such fundamental moral levels that the only choice remaining is to change. You just can't stomach yourself. That's the internal motivators. That's what we often label rock bottom. It took a combination of both for me personally, but that's okay. And speaking to that, we often talk about people entering treatment through external means, criminal justice, and how it's ineffective. Do you know the stats between people that enter treatment as a criminal justice, compelled to enter treatment, we'll call it, as opposed to someone who comes in by internal methods, by what I just described? The outcomes, anyone have any idea which one has greater outcomes? What's that? You would think there's no statistical significance between individuals in outcomes, between individuals entering treatment through being compelled, through criminal justice or whatever, as opposed to individuals coming in because they want to, or it looks like they want to. Why is that?
You have to have a desire.
What's that?
You have to have a desire to change, and it don't matter if you're in the jail or you coming off the street. When you're coming for recovery or want to get out of addiction, it's internal, and you have to have the desire to change. So it don't matter if the judge making you or you volunteering.
And that's correct. It has to get to a point where you want to change. So the reason that it works for people who are coming in through external motivators is because they're being exposed to treatment, plain and simple. They otherwise would not have been exposed to treatment. And if the treatment professionals are doing their job, when these individuals come in front of them, like I came in front of someone, myself at one time, you are working with them and building them towards a point of wanting to change. You're helping them transition from that external place to the internal place. And that's what should be happening in treatment. And for that to happen, treatment is most certainly cannot be one size fits all. Because regardless of what you come in for, you're coming, even if two people are coming in from the criminal justice system, does not mean they're at the same place when they're arriving at treatment. And the same interventions, techniques, they're not going to work for every individual. You're coming in at different places. So treatment, while in a facility, in an outpatient, so forth, has to be, number one, strength-based. So these individuals, as you're coming off your addiction, self-worth is non-existent. You have none. plain and simple. And helping individuals see the good in themselves is really, in the potential in themselves is really where it starts. Selecting the right course of treatment is extremely important. You know, Cindy's example, a client who probably needed a higher level of care, being inpatient, but had barriers. Okay, she had the language barriers. Well, while in theory, yes, clinically she should be in an inpatient facility and have everything that goes with that. But if the facilities don't have the means to overcome those barriers, what's going to happen to that client? It's just going to worsen it, because a lot of these inadequacies are just going to be exacerbated because she's still not relating in treatment. And that's why we need more facilities and more professionals along the lines that can be more culturally competent and accommodating to outside the norm. So those are very important factors. Another note that Tasha had here was talking about short-term and long-term addicts, short-term users and long-term addicts. Now, we often want to take and look at it, the longer you've been using, the worse off you are. And in a lot of cases, that's correct. Am I over time or no? Okay. All right, just making sure. 2 minutes, so keep in mind, it's not about length of time that individuals are using. It's about what's happening in that time that you are using. The consequences, everything that goes along with it, what you're experiencing. You know, we have criteria in when we are diagnosing someone with substance use disorder. There's 11 criteria. Okay? It's someone who's been using for several months may be experiencing as many, if not more, criteria as someone who's been using for 20 years. And that's the important thing. What is the level of dysfunction? It's not about how long, it's about how bad it's become. And therefore, the best approach in treatment, in moving along in treatment and helping individuals, is not just addressing, you know, addiction is very layered. The dysfunction occurs on many different levels, you know, environmentally, spiritually, biologically, you name it, there's dysfunction on every single level. It is important in treatment. You're not just addressing the substance itself and what it's done. You have to get to know the individual and understand what's happening with them on a family system, and incorporating families when it's possible. The Keenan House, where, you know, doing my internship now, they have a group where they bring the families in, and they run groups with the families and their loved one, and that's amazing. Grief. Tasha's grief groups were amazing. She ran grief groups when she was at the Keenan House, and an amazing outlet for these individuals who otherwise would not have had the opportunity to process through their grief. These are the different layers that must be addressed for an individual to move past their addiction. Addiction is not a surface disease. You must get to the root of all evils that are creating the addiction. And the challenges entering recovery as you leave treatment and enter the early stages of recovery are monumental. You know, individuals coming back, their destruction is still waiting. The sum total of their destruction is waiting for them once they leave the doors. When they go out there, nothing's changed with respect to that. And they know a surefire way not to deal with that. They go back to what's comfortable. And that's an easy answer. So we're trying to take them out of their comfort zone, and they need additional support, and that's great. And here in Lehigh County, a new program, for instance, will be starting, and I'll be fortunate enough to be supervising that program, overseeing that program at Pyramid, in conjunction with Lane Turner and Lehigh County and Magellan Behavioral Health. It's called the CRS, Certified Recovery Specialist Program. They're individuals in recovery lived experience, I am a CRS too, by the way, and they'll work with these individuals to help them overcome these early obstacles. They do everything from go on and ride a bus with them, figure out a route on a bus, ride the bus with them, you know, to helping them make appointments and go into doctor's offices because they just don't like to do things like that. Making sure that there's coordination between all different levels of needs. If they're seeing a mental health counselor, a drug and alcohol counselor, they have children and youth involvement, they have probation involvement. The CRS is going to make sure there's a consistency of communication that happens along all those levels and make sure that all needs are being addressed so that nothing falls through the cracks. And these are the different types of supports. And I overtalked, and I usually do that, so I guess I have to wind down, and I didn't really get to everything I was going to discuss, but I'll be around if there's any questions. But that's it in a nutshell. Hopefully, I had something there of interest to you. So thank you for allowing me to speak. Thank you, Tasha, for inviting me. And finally, Phil Stalker.